أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. Today we are going to start with verse number 80 of Surah Al-Anaam, that is the cattle, and this is the 6th surah in the Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَحَاجَّهُ قَوْمُهُ قَالَ أَتُحَاجُّونِي فِي اللَّهِ وَقَدْ هَدَانِي وَلَا أَخَافُ مَا تُشْرِكُونَ بِهِ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ رَبِّي شَيْئًا وَسِعَ رَبِّي كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا أَفَلَا تَتَذَكَّرُونَ. His people started quarreling with him. He said, "Do you quarrel with me about God, even though He has guided me? I am not afraid of those whom you take as partners to God, except if my Lord decides to bring me some harm. My Lord surrounds everything with His knowledge. Will you not take heed?" If you remember what we had read last time, this is a continuation of the argument that Hazrat Ibrahim a.s., that is Prophet Abraham, had with his people, with his nation. And he rejected all the things, all the idols that they were worshipping, including the sun and the moon and the stars. And he looked at each one, he said, when it went down, he said, "I cannot believe that anything that goes down can be a god." And then he said, "Do you quarrel with me about God, even though He has guided me?" So, one who believes in and is guided by God is not afraid of any power on earth. He's taking on the whole nation and he's all alone who's sort of confronting them. I'm not afraid of those whom you take as partners to God, because people were threatening him harm from their idols. They said, if you keep bad-mouthing our idols, then they're going to cause you great harm. So he said, I'm not afraid of those whom you take as partners to God, except if my Lord decides to bring me some harm. My Lord surrounds everything with His knowledge. So everything occurs according to God's knowledge and His wisdom, and no one can change it. So will you not take heed? وَكَيْفَ أَخَافُ مَا أَشْرَكْتُمْ وَلَا تَخَافُونَ أَنَّكُمْ أَشْرَكْتُمْ بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُنَزِّلْ بِهِ عَلَيْكُمْ سُلْطَانًا فَأَيُّ الْفَرِيقَيْنِ أَحَقُّ بِالْأَمْنِ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Why should I be afraid of the partners when you are not afraid of associating partners with Him, those for whom there is no authority? Tell me, which of the two groups is more deserving of peace if you have knowledge? Which of the two groups means the one group who believes in God and the other groups who believes in the idols and does not believe in the one God? So which of you is more deserving of peace? That means here it means security. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ بِظُلْمٍ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. For those who believe and do not mix belief with disbelief, there is peace and right guidance. So those people who do not mix belief with disbelief, that means like the people of Makkah, the Quraysh of Makkah used to say, yes, we believe in Allah, but we also believe in all these 360 idols with which they had surrounded the Kaaba. So those people who do not mix belief with disbelief are those who do not sully their faith with idolatry, that is, those who believe and do good works, believe in the one God and also do all the good works that they are supposed to do. There is also a hadith in this connection which says that these are the people who are thankful when they receive, the believers are thankful when they receive, patient when they are denied, and when they do wrong, they seek forgiveness, and when they are wronged, they forgive. And also here it says, for those people who believe and do not mix, that is, do not do shirk, there is peace with right guidance, and right guidance means that there is protection and peace from the punishment of the fire. وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ نَرْفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ مِّن نَّشَاءُ Inna Rabbaka Halimun Alim. These were arguments given to Ibrahim against a nation. We raise whom we please in stations. Indeed, your Lord is the wise, the ever-knowing. The arguments which have gone before which we read last time, about his looking at the sun and the moon and the stars and then rejecting them as gods, because his people were worshipping these things as their gods. So here the Quran says, these were our arguments given to Ibrahim against his nation. We raise whom we please in stations. Indeed, your Lord is the wise, the ever-knowing. So arguments were about the celestial bodies, and this is also about those who do not have to fear God's punishment and who shall feel secure. God's punishment will not be given to those who believe, who have the right belief, who believe in the one God and do not do any shirk. The Prophet's ﷺ arguments and position was similar to that of Hazrat Ibrahim a.s., that is Abraham. And these arguments mainly revolved around the futility of idol worship and the truth of and dire need for belief in the one God, in monotheism. Both were highly respected personalities. They were highly respected by their people. But when they declared their faith, they were opposed by their nation, by their people. The Prophet ﷺ was asked to discuss with the unbelievers in a manner that is clear and beautiful. This will also be found in the 16th chapter, in the 25th verse, the chapter known as the Bees, Surah Al-Anaam. And to know and convey that with God is the absolute argument. This is found in verse number 149 of the same surah that we are reading at the moment. Say, for God is the absolute argument. If He had so pleased, He would have guided you all. So this is the absolute argument. Further on in this verse it is said, we raise whom we please in stations. Now what stations are these? These are the spiritual ranks and spiritual stations. Also included in this are the degrees of provision, whatever God gives us. And provision does not mean only food and wealth, but it also means everything that God has given us. So degrees of provision, power, divine reward, knowledge and wisdom, and even degrees of the prophets. So God can raise anyone in these degrees as He wishes. God raised Abraham through his arguments. God gave Abraham, Hazrat Ibrahim a.s. all these arguments, and he was raised in rank according to these arguments. وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ كُلًّا هَدَيْنَا وَنُوحًا هَدَيْنَا مِنْ قَبْلُ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِهِ دَاوُدَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ وَأَيُّوبَ وَيُوسُفَ وَمُوسَى وَهَارُونَ كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. We bestowed on him Ishaq, that is Isaac, and Yaqub, that is Jacob. All of them we guided. And Nuh, that is Noah, we guided before that. And from his children, Dawood, David, and Suleiman, Solomon, and Ayub, Job, and Yusuf, that is Joseph, and Musa, Moses, and Harun, Aaron. This is how we reward those who excel in goodness. So this is a list of the prophets, and they have sort of inherited one from the other. They are sort of children of the former ones. And here it says, this is how we reward those who excel in goodness. كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. That means jaza is a kind of a reward for whatever one has done. And نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ means this is how we reward those who excel in goodness. Ihsan means excelling in goodness. So this means that good children are also a gift from God. And then the list continues here. وَزَكَرِيَّا وَيَحْيَا وَإِيسَى وَإِلْيَاسَ كُلٌّ مِّنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And Zechariah and Yahya and Isa, that is Jesus, and Ilyas. Ilyas is Elijah. All of them were of the righteous. وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ وَالْيَسَعَ وَيُنُسَ وَلُوطَ وَكُلًّا فَضَّلْنَا عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. And Ismail, that is Ishmael, and Al-Yasa, that is Elisha, Yunus, Jonah, and Lot. All of them we raised in rank above the worlds. Now, many commentators would like to add here, they were raised in rank above the worlds, that is, the people of their time. Similarly, is said about Hazrat Maryam alayhis salam that she was chosen from the women of the world, above the women of the world. And then commentators add meaning, above the women of the world of that time. And it is also said that Bibi Maryam is so highly revered that she is the only female who is mentioned by name in the Quran. Where other women have been mentioned but not their name. For example, the wife of Pharaoh, that is Hazrat Asiya, she is mentioned with great praise but her name is not mentioned. Similarly, Hazrat Aisha is mentioned but her name is not mentioned. وَمِنْ آبَائِهِمْ وَذُرِّيَّاتِهِمْ وَإِخْوَانِهِمْ وَاجْتَبَيْنَاهُمْ وَهَدَيْنَاهُمْ إِلَىٰ صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. And of their fathers and their children and their brothers, we chose them and guided them towards the right path. So some of them were prophets and they were also brothers. Do you remember who was a prophet, who was who were two brothers traveling together as prophets? They were Hazrat Musa alayhis salam and his brother Harun alayhis salam. They were brothers. And so here it says, and their children, and some of course were children, like for example Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam was a prophet and his children. Two of his sons were prophets. That is Hazrat Ismail alayhis salam and Hazrat Ishaq alayhis salam. They were sons as well as the prophets of their time. And then Yaqub alayhis salam was the son of Ishaq alayhis salam. Here it is also said they were also chosen for God's love. That means God appoints the prophets and also He has great love for His prophets. Therefore, He cannot tolerate His prophets being made fun of or being afflicted by the people with any kind of pain or suffering. That is the queen of Saba. The name of the nation was Saba. Her own name, Bilqis, is supposed to be a name, but that is not mentioned in the Quran. So, none of the women have their personal names mentioned in the Quran except for Bibi Maryam. So, that is a great honor for her. ذَلِكَ هُدَى اللَّهِ يَهْدِي بِهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ وَلَوْ أَشْرَكُوا لَحَبِطَ عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. So, this is the guidance from God. He guides with it whomever He wills from His creatures. If they had associated partners with God, their deeds would have been wasted. So we just discussed this, that no matter how many good deeds and how many good deeds one does with undergoing a lot of sacrifice and the pain and doing those good things for other people, yet if a person does not believe in the one God, then all those good deeds will be wasted. They will be of no value accompanied by shirk. أولئك الذين آتيناهم الكتاب والحكم والنبوة فإن يكفر بها هؤلاء فقد وكلنا بها قوما ليسوا بها بكافرين. These were the people to whom we had given the book and wisdom and prophet. So if they denied, we have appointed a people who will not deny. So these were the people means that all the prophets that are mentioned here in the last few verses, their people. These were the people to whom God had sent the book and the wisdom. Through the prophets, they were sent the books and the wisdom. What is wisdom? The wisdom is the ability to understand the book and to understand everything else that the prophet teaches. And now we think of wisdom as being collected in the hadith and the sunnah. So if they deny it, we have appointed a people who will not deny. So whenever a people denies God, then after some time, after the time limit is over, the reprieve is over, then a new prophet is sent to a new place, and those people are often destroyed. There is only one nation mentioned in the Quran who was not destroyed completely, and that was the nation of Yunus alayhi salam. Yunus alayhi salam was the prophet who is known as the one of the fish, the one who was swallowed by the fish. So his nation was the only nation that did come to believe in the end. This was about raising in rank above the worlds of their time. And the same thing is said about Hazrat Maryam, that she was chosen in rank of, I don't remember the exact words, but she was raised above the women of the worlds. I think these are the words. And there again the commentators mentioned that she was raised among the women of the world during her time, the women of that time, because the daughter of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hazrat Bibi Fatima, is also supposed to be of a very high spiritual rank. She is also a Siddiqa, even though her name is not mentioned in the Quran. But it is said that she would also be leading the women into paradise. And so on. Hazrat Bibi Asiya is mentioned with great praise. And it is even said, that she was being tortured by her husband, the Pharaoh. And she said, "Oh Lord, make me a palace or a house close to you." And then God shows her the palace that she was going to live in paradise. And even though she was being tortured at the same time, she became so blissful that it angered Pharaoh even more. So what I'm actually trying to say is of their time, when the Quran says raised in rank above the worlds, that means of that time. Similarly, the Bani Israelis were raised in rank and they were sent so many prophets, of whom they murdered so many, but they were sent so many prophets because they were being honored, and they started thinking that they were the chosen people of God. But that does not mean that they will always remain the chosen people forever, but for that time. So here you ask me why I mentioned Bibi Maryam. That is because these prophets were raised in rank above the worlds of their time, because they all came before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they were highly revered and they were raised in rank above the worlds. But we have to add of their time, because Prophet Muhammad is the leader of all the prophets. أولئك الذين هدى الله وبهداه مقتدي قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إن هو إلا ذكرى للعالمين. These are the people whom God has guided, so follow their guidance. Say, I do not ask you for wages. This is nothing but a reminder for all the worlds. These are the people like the people of all these prophets, and God had guided all these prophets, so the people in general in the whole world are being told to follow their guidance. And now the last prophet is Prophet Muhammad, so obviously it means now that we should follow him. And when the word say or qul is mentioned, then it means that Prophet Muhammad is being asked to say something to those people who are arguing with him. Qul la as'alukum alayhi ajran. That means, say, I do not ask you for wages. This is nothing but a reminder for all the worlds. And I think most of the prophets are reported to have said the same thing. They are saying that, we are not doing all this for any worldly gain. We don't want any return from you. And the same is, as far as I remember, is said by Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, that is Noah, Hud alayhi salam, Saleh, Shuaib. And they were asked to declare that this was not their profession. Profession is something from which you earn your living. And they said that this is not our profession, but the purpose of their lives. The be-all and end-all, and the only thing that they wanted to do in life was to propagate the message. That was the purpose of their life. So this is nothing but a reminder for all the worlds. Again, we are told here that this is not a reminder or a remembrance or a testament just for the Arabs of that place where Prophet Muhammad was born, but it is for all the worlds. That means it is a universal message, and we come across this thing again and again about the way in which God is trying to say that this is meant for all mankind. Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, that is also again mankind. وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ إِذْ قَالُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَى بَشَرٍ مِّن شَيْءٍ قُلْ مَنْ أَنزَلَ الْكِتَابَ الَّذِي جَاءَ بِهِ مُوسَى نُورًا وَهُدًى لِلنَّاسِ تجعلونها قراطيس تبدونها وتخفون كثيرا وعلمتم ما لم تعلموا أنتم ولا آباؤكم قل الله ثم ذرهم في خوضهم يلعبون. They did not know God's real worth when they said God has not revealed anything to anyone. So the Prophet is asked to say, who revealed the book that Musa brought? It was a glorious light and a guidance for people. We have changed it into separate papers. Now, those people who kept saying that, God has not revealed anything to anyone, then who are these people? They could be the people of Makkah, because they denied that anything had been revealed by God. So the Jews also debated, and the rabbi's name is mentioned as Al-Sayf, that God has not revealed anything to anyone or any human being. Now, he was a rabbi, and that means he was a religious leader of the Jews, and he said God has not revealed anything to anyone or any human being. And they're doing this now in order to discredit Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they did not appreciate his mercy and majesty towards them. Prophet Muhammad also, would get into these discussions with the Makkans, the people of Makkah. This question is also for them. Who revealed the book that Musa brought? And actually, when the people of Makkah started feeling attracted towards religion being propagated by Prophet Muhammad, they asked the Jews, because the Jews or the Bani Israelis were the kind of leaders, especially in spiritual matters. So they sent people to Medina and said, tell us, what do you know about this last prophet? Because they had waited for so long, and they used to talk about the last prophet, but they did not know that he would not be from among them. So when they went to ask the Jews about this last prophet, they said, no, God has not revealed anything to anyone. So Prophet Muhammad is being asked to ask them, then who revealed the book to Musa? Because so far they had been believing in the book. So all these arguments that the prophets were being given, like Hazrat Ibrahim was given so many arguments, Hazrat Muhammad was given arguments, and so also the other prophets, these arguments were all divinely inspired. They also did not come from the prophet's own mind. Now there's one point here. Progeny, the word Zuriyat, is used in somewhere here in these views. This is mentioned in verse number 84. وَمِن زُرِّيَّتِهِ دَاوُدَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ وَأَيُّوبَ. Now these prophets are being mentioned, and their children. Zuriyat means the children, their progeny. And some of the very highly respected classical commentators like Ibn Kasir and the two Jalaluddins, Mahalli and Suyuti, they say that progeny may be determined through the male as well as the female line. And we have seen this in the case of our own prophet, that his line was carried on through his daughter, Bibi Fatima. Of course, people do say that she was married to a relative of the prophet, therefore that could be the reason why. Now, here it is said in verse number 91 that they did not know God's real worth when they said that God had not revealed anything to anyone. So who revealed the book that Musa brought? Now, they did believe in the Torah, but they did not believe in the whole of it. And the Prophet ﷺ did not say to the Makkans that Islam had come to make you the most superior people in the world of that time. Then, because they believed in racial superiority, and they would have been pleased, and they would have been, they would have all have accepted Islam. But the Prophet never said that. He said this message is for the whole world. So he did not try to, cater to their superiority complex. Now here it's said in verse number 91, Ya Bi Musa Nuram wa Hudan Linnasi Taj'alunaha Qaratisa. Qaratis means papers. They made whatever was sent to them in the book through Prophet Musa and Harun, that is the Torah. They did not believe in the whole book. They turned it into separate papers. That means they were believing in this part of the book and they were not believing in that part of the book. Now these two concepts about Nuran, that the Torah is highly praised in the Quran. It is said Musa was given the Nur, that is the glorious light, and Hudan, that is guidance. And these words are often used for messages that the prophets brought. Now all these prophets that were mentioned, and then Prophet Muhammad is mentioned later on, according to Allama Alusi, he has this commentary called Ruhul Mani. All the good qualities found separately in the prophets were found all together in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is the most high in rank and the most perfect. And these two concepts of Nur and Hudan, they are These are two concepts which were connected throughout the Quran with prophethood and revelation. So these people had turned their book into separate papers. They did not consider it as one book because they were not believing in the whole of it. You were taught what was not known to you or to your forefathers. Say, God revealed the book and leave them to enjoy their vulgar talk. That means, do not argue with them too much. If they do not understand, just give the message. Tell them that through these books, people were taught what their forefathers had not been taught. And then they still argue, then just leave them alone. And this thing about revealing and concealing its many parts, it is said that the Bani Israelis concealed many things from the Torah. For example, the predictions about the advent of Prophet Muhammad and his signs and descriptions, and they also changed some laws. And here it said, leave them to enjoy the vulgar talk. That means the believers are advised to not get into disputes. Just make a statement of your belief and then you just walk away. So here it's also said they were taught what is not known to you or to your forefathers. They were taught through the Torah or Prophet Muhammad what they knew not, according to the Maqsadi. Also Prophet ﷺ taught the Makkans also many things which they didn't know about, because to the Arabs it was more than 2,000 years since the Prophet had come to them. وَهَذَا الْكِتَابُ أَنزَلْنَاهُ مُبَارَكٌ مُصَدِّقُ الَّذِي بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ وَلِتُنذِرَ الْقُرَى وَمَنْ حَوْلَهَا وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ وَهُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ. This is the blessed book, that is the Quran, that we have sent down. It confirms what was revealed before it, so that you may warn the people of Makkah, or here it is said Qura, that is the mother of all cities, and its surrounds. As for those who believe in the last day, they believe in it and are regular about their prayers. So this book confirms what was revealed before. This is a central theme essential for understanding of of any book, even of the Bible as well as the Quran. That the Bible also confirmed the books that came before it and the prophets who came earlier, and so does the Quran, and so does Prophet Muhammad. And also, some people like to add that the previous books are not present in their complete form, so whatever remains of those books are confirmed, so that you may warn the people of Makkah, the mother of all cities, and its surrounds. Surrounds, by surrounds, some people take this to mean, the area surrounding Makkah. But some say that it means, especially Hazrat Ibn Abbas says that it means all mankind, because Makkah, they say, is placed at the center of the world in some way, and its surrounds means the whole world. As for those who believe in the last day, they believe in it and are regular about their prayers. The word salat is, I think, mentioned more than 300 times, much more than 300 times in the Quran. So from that also we can see how important it is for us, for the believers, to say their prayers. Now, there is a hadith which says, Man taraka salata qad kafara. That means anyone who gives up his prayers has committed kufr. That means he becomes a disbeliever. So there are whoever omits prayers indeed disbelieve. Now, some commentators believe that even leaving out one prayer will turn one into a disbeliever. But there are others who say that those who neglect prayers on the whole, that is a kind of a kufr, a disbelief. And also it is said about salat, inna salata ala al-mu'minina kitabam mawquta. That means prayer for the mu'mineen, that is for the true believers, has kitaban means had been written for them, or it has been made an obligation for them, it's obligatory for them. Mawquta means fixed according to the time. So the time in the prayer is a very important factor. And one cannot say that I'll gather all my prayers together and say them in the evening. Of course, that is better than not saying them at all. But the best way is to pray when it is time for that particular prayer. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنِ افْتَرَى عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا O qala uhiya alayya wa lam yuha ilayhi shay'un wa man qala sa unzila misla ma anzala Allahu وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذِ الظَّالِمُونَ فِي غَمَرَاتِ الْمَوْتِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ بَاسِطُو أَيْدِيهِمْ أَخْرِجُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ الْيَوْمَ تُجْزَوْنَ عَذَابَ الْهُونِ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَقُولُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ غَيْرَ الْحَقِّ وَكُنْتُمْ عَنْ آيَاتِهِ تَسْتَكْبِرُونَ Who could be more evil than one who slanders God or says, revelation has been sent to me, when no revelation has been sent to him at all, or the one who says, I will reveal the like of that revealed by God. If you could only see when the evil are in the throes of death, and the angels are reaching out with their hands saying, give up your souls. Today you will be given a shameful punishment because you used to speak about God unjustly and were too proud to believe in his revelations. So one who could be more evil than one who slanders God? The Arabic word is iftara. That means saying something and declaring that this has been sent by, this is a command of God when it is not. So fabricating a lie against God can mean creating idols and saying, that this is what God asked us to do, inventing religious beliefs and saying, for example, the Makkans used to have all these kinds of beliefs about their cattle, and if a she-camel had produced so many, children, then they would say that she'd become a buhira or whatever, a saiba or whatever, and then they would treat her in a different way and not make use of that animal anymore. So all these things they invented, and then they said this has been commanded by God. And claiming one's ideas as divine revelation, this of course is fabricating a lie. And then there were some false prophets like Musailma and Al-Aswad al-Ansi. And there were some others. They were sort of contemporaries of the Prophet, and after the Prophet they just sort of tried to rise and they said, we are the next Prophet. So against Musailma, I remember that Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq led a war against him and defeated him. Then there were also others who thought they could receive the revelation or they could produce the verses like the Quran. So all these things come under the heading of slandering God or iftira Allah, that means falsely saying something about God which is not true. And then their condition at the time of their death is described here, that the angel will say, reaching out with the hand saying, give up your souls, and you will be given a shameful punishment. And it is also said that those who believe will give up their souls very easily because they are willing to see God and because they hope that they will go to paradise. But those who do not believe, it will be very difficult and painful for them to give up their souls. Then it carries on and says, because you used to speak about God unjustly and were too proud to believe in His revelations. Now, pride, we know, is a major sin, is a vice. This was also the cause of Satan's downfall and also the disbelievers' attitude towards God's signs brought by prophets. This will also be a cause of their downfall. وَلَقَدْ جِئْتُمُونَا فُرَادَى كَمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَتَرَكْتُمْ مَا خَوَّلْنَاكُمْ وَرَاءَ ظُهُورِكُمْ وَمَا نَرَى مَعَكُمْ شُفَعَاءَكُمُ الَّذِينَ زَعَمْتُمْ أَنَّهُمْ فِيكُمْ شُرَكَاءُ لَقَدْ تَقَطَّعَ بَيْنَكُمْ وَضَلَّ عَنْكُمْ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَزْعُمُونَ. And you have come to us one by one, the way we had created you the first time. You have left behind what we gave you. We do not see with you the intercessors you were so proud of, and about whom you thought that in matters concerning you, they were your associates. They were our associates, that is God's associates. All the ties between you have been severed and lost are all the claims you used to make. So when these people reach the other world, here it is being said that you have come to us one by one the way we created you the first time, right? Everyone was created separately, and so also when one dies, one will go separately. You cannot carry your family with you or other friends that you trust in hoping that somebody will be able to help you out. So everyone will go alone, and also will go without all the wealth that one has collected and all the friends and the children and families. All these things, wealth, friends, children, all these things give security in this world, but at that time there will be no such security. But all the effort to acquire knowledge of God and virtue and good deeds committed, they are sent ahead to benefit in the hereafter and hopefully will be multiplied, as it is said in the Quran. And also it is said that the knowledge of the Quran will stay with you. Other kinds of knowledge might be, just erased, but the knowledge of the Quran will stay with the person who acquires it. Inna Allaha faliqul habbi wan nawa yukhrajul hayya minal mayyiti wa mukhrajul mayyata minal hayyi zalikumullahu fa anna tufikun. Indeed, God is the one who tears apart the grain and the seed. He brings out the living from the dead and the dead from the living. Such is God. So where are you wandering? So this is one of the signs of God to be found in nature, that at the right time, when the right conditions are produced, when the grain and the seed splits open. So God is the one, according to whose command, these things split open and a new plant is born from them. If you have ever seen a banyan tree, it is one of the strongest and the biggest trees that I have ever seen. And the seed is so small and beautiful. It's a red-colored small seed, and you can't believe that this whole tree can come out of this one little seed. And also, if you look at the seed of the date, that is so hard. It's almost like a stone. You can't break it with your teeth. And yet, when it is given the right conditions of warmth and water, moisture, then there is enough strength inside that seed that it will split open the seed and a new plant will start sprouting up. So God is the one who tears apart the grain and the seed, and He brings out the living from the dead and the dead from the living. How? The living from the dead? Because that seed at that moment, when it's just a seed, is something like, it's a dead thing. And from this dried and dead thing comes out something green and living, tall trees. And the seed, every seed is so programmed that every seed will just bring out the plant of its own species. There is no mistake ever in this. And bringing out the living from the dead is also, the example is given that an egg is something dead. It has no life in it. But when it is given the right conditions, then the chicken comes out of it. And the dead from the living is when the living thing dies, that is the dead from the living. So such is God. He has the powers to do all this. So where are you wandering? These are all signs of God's creative power in all of nature. Some commentators have also taken this to mean living from the dead or the dead from the living, to mean that here mukhrajul mayyata minal hayy means the spiritually dead. That, they might seem to be living, but they're actually spiritually dead. Faliqul isbahi wa ja'ala al-layla sakana wa shamsa wal qamara husbana. Zalika taqdirul azizil alim. He tears apart the darkness to bring forth the morning, and He made the night for rest, and the sun and the moon for counting. This is the estimate of the eminent, the ever-knowing. Of course, we're just so used to all these things that we never stop to think about them. But if you once in a while you stop to think about them, you realize, what kind of miracles these are. That the sun and the moon and all these stars, they all know exactly at what time they have to rise, where, and if there was even a few seconds difference in the time in their coming up or moving, then the whole system would collapse. They would just collide with each other and they would collapse. But that never happens. Might happen on the day of judgment. So He tears apart the darkness to bring forth the morning. And you also notice when it's about, when the sun is about to rise, how the birds all know exactly, that it's going to be morning, and they start chirping even before the sun has come out. So all of nature is coordinated, and there is harmony in nature. For example, when we want some peace of mind, where do we want to go? We do not want to go to the busiest bazaar in the city. No, we want to go to some peaceful place where there is a lot of natural beauty and harmony in nature. That gives us a lot of peace. Now here it is also said that the night has been made for rest. And sometimes people have a duty during the night and then they sleep during the day. But it is said that sleep is not equal to the sleep which one gets at night, because everything is quiet and that is the best time for repose, for sleeping. This is also a mercy of God. Then the sun and the moon have been made for counting, that is, to keep track of the time. How do we do the counting from this? This is done by, keeping track of the days and the months. We know it is now night and it is the day, and the new day has dawned. We know it's a different date, so we can count the days. And then there are months, and then there are years, and then there are seasons which follow from this movement of the celestial bodies. وَهُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ النُّجُومَ لِتَهْتَدُوا بِهَا فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ قَدْ فَصَّلْنَا الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْمَلُونَ. He is the one who made the stars to guide you in the darkness of the land and the sea. Thus we have explained our signs to the people who have knowledge. Now, how do the stars guide us? Since we live in this modern age when there are lights in almost every place that we go to, we cannot see the stars so clearly. But if you happen to be in a place where there are no artificial lights, and you lie down on whatever, and you look at the sky and you see that they are so clearly and brightly visible. And people can also recognize the stars and the constellations just by looking at them. So this is called the spatial orientation, which is a guide, because people used to say, okay, I'm moving in the direction of these stars and I'll be moving towards such and such a place, such and such a city or country. Now, the darkness of the night has also been compared to a moral and intellectual darkness of error and misguidance, while the sun, moon and stars represent the various levels of moral guidance and spiritual illumination. So, for the people who reason from sensory realities to intellectual ones and move on from the seen to the unseen. So, these people think that this here represents the symbolic meaning. So he made the stars to guide you in the darkness of the land and the sea. Thus we have explained our signs for the people who have knowledge. So the greater one's knowledge, the more a person is convinced about the oneness of God. When you look at nature, you become convinced about the oneness of God, because if there had been more than one God, then there would have been discord in nature. But there is no discord, there is harmony. Everything from the shape, size, qualities, and the benefits that everything in nature gives and its relationship with the rest of the creation, all these are signs of the oneness of God. So thus we have explained our signs of the people who have knowledge. So people who are intelligent, who want to learn something, who are not proud, they learn from something from these signs of nature. But there are scientists these days who do not believe in religion, they do not believe in the signs of nature. But there have been some scientists and doctors who, when they read the Quran, they at once came to believe. There was this French doctor, Maurice Bucaille, who read the Quran and he said, how could anyone know these things 14 centuries ago? So he came to believe, and then he has also written a book about it. وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنْشَأَكُم مِّن نَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ مستقر ومستودع قد فصلنا الآيات لقوم يفقهون. He is the one who created you from a single soul. Then there is a place for stay and a place for temporary keeping. Thus we have explained our signs for a people who understand. He created you from a single soul. The word used in Arabic here is nafs. Now, nafs is a word which has been translated in various ways. It has been translated as the soul, as a cell, a person, a life, the ego, or the conscience. So, and maybe even some more words have been used to translate the word nafs. Now, this fact, nafsin wahidatin, from one nafs, from one soul, This was also used in Surah An-Nisa, that we have created you from one soul and then spread from that one soul. Yes, somebody has, Afshin has sent a message, The Quran, the Bible and Science by Maurice Bucaille. That is the name of the book that the Dr. Maurice Bucaille had written after reading the Quran. And it's very interesting, how he explains everything and how he's surprised that someone knew all these things at that time. Of course, it wasn't a human being who knew about all these things. It was, since it came from God, God knew everything always. So He created you from a single soul, then there is a place for stay and a place for temporary keeping. Now, some people have explained this as a place for stay as the world, and the place for temporary keeping is the grave, until you are raised again. And this has also been called the repository, where something is placed as a trust for some time. So the grave is a place where the body is kept for some time as a trust. وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَأَخْرَجْنَا بِهِ نَبَاتَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَأَخْرَجْنَا مِنْهُ خَضِرًا نُخْرِجُ مِنْهُ حَبًّا مُتَرَاكِبًا وَمِنَ النَّخْلِ مِنْ طَلْعِهَا قِنْوَانٌ دَانِيَةٌ وَجَنَّاتٍ من أعناب والزيتون والرمان مشتبه وغير متشابه انظر إلى ثمره إذا أثمر وينعه إن في ذلكم لآيات لقوم يؤمنون. He's the one who sent down water from the skies. Water is mentioned so many times, again and again in the Quran, as one of the signs of God. See how water is the main source of life. We also learn from the Quran that God says in the Quran, we created life from water. And this is something that is given in the origin species. He says, he comes up, according to him, he has come up with a new theory that life was created from water. But I even read an article which said that in his library books, there was a copy of the Quran. And this is probably where he discovered it, and then he developed his own theory of evolution, the theory of evolution. So, of course, we don't agree with everything that he says, but some things might be true. So, water is mentioned as being one of the signs of God's greatness and oneness and His creative power. If you try to take some water in your hand, it is so light, it will just slip through your hand. But you try to pick up a bucket of water, and then it becomes so heavy that you just, find it impossible to lift it. Also, you take a piece of steel and you throw it into the water and it will sink. But a huge big ship made out of that same steel, if it has the right proportions, it will just keep sailing on the waters. So all these are signs of God. The ships are also mentioned several times as the signs of God. And how water is preserved in the skies through the clouds, this is also, even though water, if you throw water up, it will come down. But when it is saved in a certain form, in the form of vapor, then it can stay in the sky. And we produce from it everything that grows. So everything, all life needs water in order to grow. Green stalks producing grain clustered together, and for the date palm bunches hanging low. So when there's a lot of fruit in a tree, the branches hang low and they are full of fruit. There's also a saying in some languages which mean that when a plant is fruitful, then it becomes more humble and it hangs low. So that means a person who is worth something will be humble. So in gardens of grapes and olives and pomegranates, some similar and others different. So even like if you take, for example, the example of a mango, you have so many varieties of mangoes. You take dates, there are so many varieties of dates. So here it is said that some are similar and others are different. Even pomegranates might have different varieties. All the fruits have their own variety. Olives might be green or black and, small or large or whatever. So even with oranges also are very different, There are so many varieties of oranges. So all these are signs of God's creativity. And here it is said, observe its fruit when the fruit is born and is ripening. So how from the first you get the flowers, and then, after that sometime it is pollinated, and then you find that a small little bud kind of thing is growing from that flower, and then it starts growing until it becomes a big fruit. And then the fruit is raw in the beginning, and the farmers know when to harvest it. They let it, ripen somewhat on the tree, and after that, the fruit can ripen even when it is taken off the tree. So all these are signs of God. Indeed, and these are signs for those who believe. How, gradually every fruit has its own characteristics. We had a gardener once, and, otherwise he seemed to be a very simple man, almost like a simpleton. But when he talked about plants, he said, this plant loves water. This plant loves shade. This plant doesn't like, too much water and so on. And he always talked about the plants as if he was talking about some human beings. So he was so close to nature that he could feel, the life in the plants and their likes and dislikes. وَجَعَلُوا لِلَّهِ شُرَكَاءَ الْجِنَّ وَخَلَقَهُمْ وَخَلَقُوا لَهُ بَنِينَ وَبَنَاتٍ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ Subhanahu wa ta'ala amma yasifun. They have assigned jinns as partners to God, even though God has created them. And they have invented for him sons and daughters without any knowledge. Glory be to him. Too exalted is he for what they say. Firstly, I would like to mention that the jinns and human beings have many parallel qualities, similarities. One is that they have been given a choice, which means they can either be good jinns or they can be bad jinns. Other creatures are all the same. They have no choice. But the jinns have some qualities which the human beings do not have. That is, they can disappear from sight, and actually mostly they are not apparent. They are invisible. But when they want to, they can become visible. They can take any form they please. And since they are the only other creatures who have a free choice, they will be held accountable. They will also be judged on the day of judgment. Now that here it is said, as jinns as partners to God, because some people worship the jinns because of their powers which human beings did not have. Some people started worshipping them. Also, they had a belief that God had married into the jinns. That God had married, Nauzubillah, had married a female jinn, and the children produced from that marriage were angels, and they were daughters. The angels were daughters. So this is why it is said here, and they have invented for him sons and daughters without any knowledge. Now, sons are made by the Christian belief that Jesus is the Son of God, and the Makkans believe that the angels were the daughters of God. Let's say a little prayer. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina azaban nar. O our Lord, give us the best in this world and the best in the hereafter, and protect us from the punishment of the fire. Ameen summa ameen. Thank you everyone for joining us, and inshallah we'll see you next week and carry on from here. Jazakallah khair. Allah Hafiz.